Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. We are excited to welcome you to this joint webinar by Brightsight and Espressif Systems, where we will discussing the upcoming requirements of the Radio Equipment Directive Delegated Act, also known as RED DA, and how manufacturers can prepare for the compliance. This is a very important topic for anyone bringing wireless products to the European market. And we are glad to see such a strong interest from developers, product teams, and compliance professionals across the region. With us today, we have Alex and David from Brightsight, one of the world's leading security evaluation labs and deep experience in cybersecurity certifications and compliance. We are also joined by Sachin from Espressif Systems, who leads our efforts on the regulatory readiness. Today's presenters have very vast experience in cybersecurity and compliance and will guide us through the new RED DA Act requirements and how to prepare for them. Without further ado, let me introduce Alex. Alex is currently the sales manager at Brightsight with years of experience in supporting IoT companies in navigating certifications and compliance challenges. So over to you, Alex.
Thank you, Nand. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. I'm very excited to help you here and guiding for RED Delegated Act. So the contents of today, I will introduce you a bit of Brightsight, who we are and what we do. Then the RED Delegated Act. We will talk about the articles 3.3, D, E, and F. And then we will go to the EN 18031 series of standard. After that, my colleague David will explain you the compliance approaches, and he will give you some practical examples. After that, we will give the floor to Espressif in order to help you understanding how we work together for the use case. So let me introduce Brightsight. So as Nat was saying, we are a cybersecurity lab with 40 years of experience. In 2021, part of the SDS group, 10 locations around the world with the headquarters in the Netherlands. We are active in more than 50 schemes and standards. And in total, there are around 200 experts delivering around 700 projects per year. So Brightsight is very active in different industries, from payment to telecommunication, energy, space, IC, government, and of course in IoT. So medtech, industrial, and consumer IoT. We consider ourselves as a one-stop shop. That means that we have the knowledge and the capability to support from the pre-evaluation phase with the training and advisory services and pre-testings. And these results can be reused during the formal security evaluation. On top of that, we are certification body for CESIP, EUCC, and we are notified body by SDS FinCo for RED Delegated Act. So, as Nant was saying, RED EN 18031 is the topic of today. I want to give you first a bit of overview about what's happening around the world and the other initiatives. So here you can see the major ones. In the American region, is worth to mention the US Cyber Trust Mark, which is a voluntary labeling program targeting next year as a start, 2026. In Asia Pacific, it's worth to mention the Singapore National Cybersecurity Labeling Scheme, which is also mutually recognized with German and the Finnish local initiative. Then we have the UK PSTI from 2024 and the Cyber Resilience Act coming in force in Europe in the next years. So Europe is very active in regulations, and here you see what's happening today. So we have the Artificial Intelligence Act, Digital Service Act, the CHIPS Act. We have NIS2 and the Cybersecurity Act. So as you can see, a lot is happening, and we as Brightsight, we are trying to monitor every initiative, especially the one related to the cybersecurity and the product testing. So RED is not new. We have here on the right the picture related to RED. We see that there is Article 3.1a related to health and safety, Article 3.1b for EMC, and 3.2 for radio spectrum. So the new Article 3.3 is the one related to the cybersecurity, and sections D, E, and F. Section D is related to network functioning resources, Section E related to personal data and privacy, and F related to fraud protection. Manufacturers will have two options to show compliance. The first one is self-declaration. If restrictions are not applicable, we will see the details later. Or as an alternative, we have the third-party testing report plus EU type certification letter from RED notified body. This is applicable to all the devices with communication capability via internet, toys and childcare, and wearables. As we know, it was originally planned from August 2024, but postponed to last week actually, so 1st of August 2025. There are some exceptions, medical devices, in vitro product, and the automotive domain. These are out of the scope of the RED Delegated Act. So in January 2022, the European Commission published the delegated regulation, which activated three essential requirements. So the standards were written to cover the essential requirements of RED. And here I am talking about EN 18031 Part 1, covering Article 3.3d, related to the network functioning. We have EN 18031 Part 2, covering Article 3.3e, related to processing data for users. So we will see the details later. We have EN 18031 Part 3, covering Article 3.3f, related to radio equipment, processing, virtual money, or monetary value. So in 2024, the EN 18031 series of standards were approved, but the harmonization, the assessment was failed. So has assessment succeeded in January 2025 with restrictions? It's important to mention that EN 18031 is the first horizontal EU security standard for products online with cybersecurity. There are three restrictions, very important. So the first one is related to setting up a password. So if a product requires users to set a password, it must enforce a password change upon first use. Same for parental control. There are some restrictions. So for toy radio devices and childcare radio devices, parental control must be included as part of the access control mechanism. And then related to the Part 3, financial transaction, it's on the clause 6.324, which defines the methods for secure updates. And none of the methods in this clause alone is sufficient to ensure secure updates. So that means that here there is the need to involve a notified body for covering the compliance of Part 3. So to go deeper, we can see on the table here on the right, which are the requirements for each part of EN 18031. So we can see which are the requirements in common and which are the requirements specifically for the part of the radio equipment directive, which is in scope of your product. So here, this is the way to check how your product is falling under which part and what are the requirements that you need to consider for the compliance. So to help you, we created this table with the list of the parts of the standard and some of examples of products in scope. So part 1, as we said, is related to the communication directly or via any other equipment. In this part is falling mobile phone, tablet, Wi-Fi router, air conditioner, IoT appliances in general, and all devices with Wi-Fi communication. On part 2, the one related to personal data, traffic data, location data, we can include smartwatches, wearable in general, and for example, vacuum cleaner, baby monitor, and GPS tracking devices. Part 3 is related to the payment, so devices with the capability of transferring money, monetary value, or virtual currency. And of course, here we can consider, for example, POS, ATM, and multifunction devices with the capability to transferring money. So with that, I'm happy to introduce David, my colleague, who will explain you the compliance approaches.
Hi, hello everyone. This is David Biedner speaking. I'm working for Brightsight as a security evaluator now for more than 5 years. I'm located in Graz, Austria, and I will go through the compliance approaches first, and then I will provide some details about documents that have to be submitted during the verification of compliance. And I will go into more detail about the risk assessment, and also to finalize this, I will show already some example questions that we have with different clients over the last couple of weeks and months now. So first of all, what are the two approaches that one can choose to go for showing compliance? So one of them is the self-assessment, which is possible to do because the EU harmonized certain standards, as we all know from before. Here we have this implementing decision in place. This is 2025-138 with certain exceptions for each harmonization. If you fall under the exceptions, you need to pay extra attention, and you might also need to choose the path over the notified body. You have to provide the same technical documentation as you would provide to the notified body. You are not required to publish this technical documentation, but in case your product is verified afterwards when brought into the EU market, there might be a request to show this technical documentation to the market surveillance. In the end, of course, like previously for the Radio Equipment Directive, you always have to provide this declaration of conformity and also state in there which standards are applicable for your product. With a notified body, the process is quite similar, I would say, but instead of only being allowed to use harmonized standards, you can also work with other standards, which provide at least the same level of security. So if you are already doing security evaluations and certifications, it is possible to reuse results together with a notified body to claim conformity to the RED articles here. So the notified body is not forced to make use of the EN 18031 series for showing compliance. This is the two approaches you have here. Let's move on to the documents that need to be provided. For the required documentation for the CE marking, I think if you have worked with the radio equipment directive before, a lot of these things will sound very similar already. So the identification of radio interfaces, which countries is your product working in, provide photographs, provide this declaration of conformity, how will the label look like, the CE marking, etc., the packaging. This is already quite well known, I think. Important part here, what is very often a question that we receive is, can we do this without any specific software? What is the part here to declare? Because it's important that you name which software, because most of the time security features are implemented in software, of course. It's important to state the software version which the product is shipped with. So the software that is running on the product when the product enters the market. Then also already required is an analysis of the risk regarding the compliance to the RED articles in question. I will go into more details on the next slides. And in the end, of course, you need to show a test report where you walk through the 18031 assessments, which is the conceptual assessment, the functional, and the functional sufficiency assessment. In case of self-declaration, you need to show proof that you have assessed those by yourself. With a notified body, very often the notified body does this assessment or is even requesting to do these assessments on their own and is not accepting input from a third party on the assessment. Let's move on to some details about the risk assessment. So the radio equipment directive asks for a risk evaluation regarding what could happen to the device in question that would result in non-conformity to applicable requirements. I have put in here some documents which are supporting the creation of the risks document, which is the blue guide from 2016, which describes this process in general. And then we have from the RED CA a technical documentation which shows how notified body are asked to examine the risk assessment from the manufacturer. It's important when you come from a cybersecurity background that this risk assessment is not asking for a threat analysis and an impact statement of certain attacks, but it more asks about the influences of the operational environment and the usual operation of the device. So we have operational environments where security measures might not be effective if the attacker has physical access to the device, but because the usual operational environment would be a private home or area where usually, which is not assumed public, could already be used for a certain risk assessment here. Also, for the network environment, if the device assumes to be in a private network, this has way less attack space in the opposition to if the device would be directly connected to the internet over LTE, for example. This is also plays also a role when we look at the EN 18031 Part 1, where resilience mechanisms against denial of service attacks play a role. Here, the risk assessment could go in the direction that the operational environment shall provide measures against this, like no port forwarding for this device, for example. Yes, thanks. What is the usual content here? So I have taken this information from the RED CA documentation. The risk analysis should always state which standards are in scope here. This is usually some of the notified of the harmonized standards apply here. It might also be the case that you are using non-harmonized standards, as mentioned before, a description of the operational environment, and if certain parts of this operational environment are not in place as documented, what might be the impact to certain requirements stated in the standard, like I mentioned before, for example, the resilience mechanisms. Then we have, of course, a list of all those risks which should have already been analyzed before, which are non-security relevant. Then we have regional regulatory compliance impacts, which might have or might play a role when you are selling your product worldwide, where you have issues with the settings or where settings are possible, which would let the device behave in a way it would not be conform for the EU market. Also, are software updates allowed? This is something we also get as a regular question. What happens if my device supports third-party software? Then, of course, you cannot be responsible for that software at the moment, but you need to state that someone could exchange your software. And one thing that comes with the cybersecurity quite frequently is, are there any known issues? For example, do you have an exploitable issue on your device and you need to have an update as soon as putting this device into operation, but you cannot update the software anymore because it's already produced with a certain library in place and brought to the market with this library. Okay, that's the input for the risk assessment. Let's have some examples that we have faced and we have discussed in the last weeks and months. First of all, we had a discussion about the Bluetooth headsets. Here, the question is very often, is my device falling under the RED articles in question? I think the first part, usually a Bluetooth headset has no direct or indirect connection to the internet. There is always the phone which processes data and then puts it to the headset. But the article 3.3.e might apply to a headset or should apply to a headset because it's a wearable, so it falls under that category even without internet connection, and it computes on personal data and is transmitting personal data following the definitions in the GDPR. For example, the content of phone calls is quite personal. Therefore, an analysis and protection of this should be in place. Then we have another question here because of convenience reasons. On the headset side, we have the question, is the symbol pairing a secure authentication mechanism? Because our users, they want to have symbol pairing. We do not want to have an NFC interface to tag it to a phone and lose customers without NFC functionality, or how to pair it with a laptop if it doesn't have an NFC reader. So here it's fine, or it's possible to use the risk statement to say, of course, it's not ideal, but when owning both devices and verifying that this connection is established, you can assume that this authentication has been done. Afterwards, the device will always connect. There might be, of course, a risk remaining, which is for man-in-the-middle attacks, where someone spoofs to be both devices, and you connect to each other on one side, but this might be stated in the user manual that this is possible, or in the risk assessment document. Another additional step for the end user would be to say, if you want to be sure about that, you can also check the hardware addresses here. It's not 100% protection against man-in-the-middle attacks, but it mitigates most of the common attacks seen on that authentication methodology. Okay, let's go to the next question. We have a lot of home automation devices in question. Here we regularly receive the question, is my device in scope of this article? First of all, if the device connects to the internet, for example, we are sending sensor values to a cloud backend, we are fetching the current time using NTP, or we are receiving software updates from the cloud, then it's a clear indication that an internet connection is present. And also, depending on what information is transferred on a network or recorded by the device, if we think of cameras, for example, which could fall in this category, then of course we are also in the question of point E of the RED. Here, in addition, I have also mentioned the question as before about the secure storage mechanism with physical attacks. So if it's not clear where this device might be used, like if you place it on the outside, if it's made for public use, there is a different risk for physical attacks than if you would place it in a private home, for example. But this is something you can state in the risk assessment. Okay, let's come to some other questions. Very often when we have this discussion, there is always, we are not sure if our device falls under any category, but can we still have a certificate for this? Then it's very clear from the notified body, we cannot issue a certificate if in the opinion of the notified body, the RED Article 3.3 is not applicable, then they will not go for certification. And the manufacturer shall then declare in the risk assessment why the RED Article 3.3.DEF are not applicable to the device, or why the device is not in scope of these articles. And a question I have also mentioned briefly before, what if my device runs different software or is able to support third-party software? Is this an issue for conformity to these articles? At the moment, there is no restriction on the software running on radio equipment. Important part is that the software and hardware combination, which is on the device when it enters the market, this must be assessed. Now, this is the important takeaway here. And this brings me to the end of the part of the end of the presentation from my part, and I hand over to Sachin from Espressif.
Yeah, thanks, David, for nice explanation and setting up the context for me. So in this part of the presentation, I will talk about Espressif Systems RED compliance status and how we are supporting our customer. Yeah. So here is an abstract view of the Espressif SOCs and platform compatibility with the RED requirements, security requirements. So identity and access, which is mapped to the ACM, AUM, and other security requirements, are rooted into the hardware and also implemented in the firmware. Lifecycle security, which complemented with secure update, storage, and data at rest management is supported by flash encryption and other secure storage implementation on the device. Communication and cryptography. All common security communication protocols are also part of the firmware. Device always initiate communication with mutual authentication. And other secure fundamentals, for example, secure boot, OTA updates are supported on the platform. So, as mentioned earlier, the different way of achieving the compliance with the RED DA. So, as David mentioned that there are mainly two ways of achieving the compliance with the RED DA: self-declaration, self-assessment, and notified body assessment. So, self-declaration is the area we actually actively participating and supporting our customer with the set of template documents which are required to show the conformity with the regulation. So as mentioned here, as mentioned earlier also, we provide pre-filled templates which include a risk assessment, standard mappings which maps Espressif security features to EN 18831 security requirements, self-declaration forms, technical specifications which actually collect and represent the end product, other details. As mentioned earlier, we want to provide these pre-filled templates to assist our customers to achieve their compliance faster, and they can start their compliance document preparation with the help of this template. But we understand that every end product will be different and may have different security framework or requirements. So in case these templates are falling short, we want to suggest them to take the expertise, take the support from us as long as specific offerings are concerned. Or if it goes beyond, then they may always fall back to the consultancy as we are working with SGS, Brightsight by SGS, and other security labs. And third point I wanted to mention here is that some of the products which completely owned by Espressif, for example, ESP80, ESP0 code, and AWS IoT Express Link. So for these products, we provide complete set of documents, final set of documents signed by Espressif, which customer can use as it is if they are not modifying any security or software configuration. So once explained this, let me show you the template documents which we are providing and supporting to the customer. So these are the set of documents we are providing, pre-filled templates we are providing to the customers. This start with the README documents, which clearly list all the set of documents part of this package and how customer can use it. Disclaimer, this is the main template which actually maps the security requirement of Espressif platforms to the RED DA security requirements. Declaration of conformity, which after completing the technical documents, manufacturers should fill. Risk assessment, as earlier explained by the David, and product description template. So let us start with the risk assessment document. As mentioned earlier, that RED DA doesn't expect detailed threat analysis and detailed documentation, So this is the abstract risk assessment which customer can use to fill their assumptions, their operating conditions of their end products, along with other necessary information. For example, which part of the RED part 1, 2, or 3 end product complies with, authorized signature of the OEMs. Product description template. Yeah, so apart from product details, equipment name, model, and versioning, and what specific standard it complies to, other product specific details like equipment image, PCB schematics, and other user manual and technical documents details. And finally, when these documents are ready, customer OEM need to fill this self-declaration form and keep with them in case surveillance authorities require this. And then the final document, which is the mapping document. So this is the main document which actually OEM need to fill, and on behalf of them, from the Espressif platform, we have pre-filled, which most of the cases will be sufficient, and delta, whatever end product customers are building, they have to adopt according to that. So this mapping document start with cover page, which list this document here, of course, prepared along with the Brightsight using their template. So the cover page list the product details and other relevant document links. This is a summary page of compliance with all the security requirement listed in the harness standard. Product information is mentioned that hardware and software versions are important to list, which actually represent the compliance status in terms of vulnerability also. So this page actually capture those specific details, and then the actual security requirements starts from where. So in general terms, every product security framework target is to protect the security resources of that product. So this work start with listing all the security assets of the product. In terms of RED DA, they categorize this security requirement into security assets, and if you see going forward, network assets. This is in the case of part 1. In case of part 2, it is security requirement and privacy, security assets and privacy. And in part 3, it is security assets and financial assets. So this mapping document I'm presenting today belongs to part 1. So here is a list of security assets, part of the Espressif platform product. Secure boot and corresponding sub-assets, access to public key, root public key hash, which is blown in the device, is the sub-assets, and eFuse, which actually protect this assets public key digest. Similarly, secure storage. The form in which this secure storage is implemented on the Espressif platform is flash encryption, NVS encryption, and eFuse storage. secure OT update, platform supports OT update, pre-encrypted OT updates also. And these other subsets belongs to that security OT update. Next is device debug capabilities and various subsets involved in that, and how these debug capabilities can be restricted in the end devices, what control measures are provided, and what subsets are involved in that. Since it is a connectivity product, belongs to part 1, TLS stacks, and all the subsets belongs to that uh, uh, protocol stacks, certificate bundles, device private keys, and TRNG, which is used to generate the session keys, etc. Secure equipment identities. This is the provision to establish the unique identity for each device, and various sub-assets belongs to these security assets. There are various ways the security assets, this secure equipment identity can be established on the device. So these are the sub-assets involved to deliver or establish this security equipment identity. Next is secure equipment onboarding. Many of the connectivity products required this to provision or commission the device in its operating environment. So this is the mechanism, security functions, and these are the sub-assets belongs to that security assets. So these are the security assets. Others are equipment, these network assets. This sheets, pre-filled template sheets actually use ESP32C6, specific to ESP32C6 target SoCs. So based on that chip, these are the network assets involved in this device. Wi-Fi capabilities and various sub-assets belongs to that. Wi-Fi hardware interface, protocol stacks, keys to establish the secure communication over Wi-Fi. Similarly, Bluetooth connectivity, Bluetooth capabilities, hardware interface, protocol stacks, and various keys and mechanism involved to establish the secure communication or pairing the other device. Then equipment thread capabilities, similarly hardware interface, protocol stacks, and key material. So these are the identified security assets and network assets for this device, and how this mapping sheets actually complies with the RED DA requirement is captured in following sheets. So one of the first requirement is access control mechanisms. So since these assets actually forms the core of the device securities, these access to these assets need to be protected. So access control mechanisms actually list the mechanisms, device supports, Espressif platform supports, and how these access control mechanisms actually protect the various assets and sub-assets on the device. So SCM actually capture those details. This is quite heavy in terms of the content. So going through this, there are around 35 plus sheets. Will be difficult to explain in a brief discussions. I will give the overview of each these requirements in abstract in short form. So SCM actually capture the access control mechanisms implemented on the platform. AUM is authentication mechanism, which actually capture the mechanism which actually authenticate any entity which is allowed to access allowed to access the security assets on this platform. So these are the authentication mechanism. Next requirements is secure update. As part of the maintaining the device life cycle, whenever software need to be updated, secure update mechanisms are supported, and entire device firmware is categorized into immutable, updatable, and data partitions. So immutable by definitions are integrity is ensured, so it cannot be updated. But firmware part can be updated. So device Espressif solution supports secure update, secure OTA to fulfill this requirement. Secure storage mechanisms. So to protect the data at rest, all the security assets, for example, keys and other user data at rest, secure storage mechanisms are supported. There are various forms. It can be used flash encryption, NVS encryptions, or OTA storage. Next requirement is secure communication. This is the requirement to fulfill the secure communication, especially when security assets are moved or exchanged to the external entities. So secure communication mechanisms is a requirement for that, and platform actually supports those using all standard security protocols and protecting the certificate bundles and private keys in the secure storage. Next is resilience mechanism, network monitoring, and network control mechanisms. So these are pretty much depends on the end product configurations, but those mechanisms are very much supported and as part of the standard protocols. So those can be those are captured in this reference platform and can be taken as a reference for the end product. Next is cryptographic confidential cryptographic keys. This is to show the compliance that product follows or is good follows all good security practices and use strong enough keys, no proprietary crypto algorithm, etc. So these sheets actually capture the compliance with those requirements. These keys actually categorize in pre-provisioned keys and keys generated on the device at runtime. So this sheet shows the compliance that all the keys are strong enough, follow the good security practice, and comply with the minimum security strength requirement. Next is general equipment capabilities. So there are requirements that at the time of placing the device on the in the market, it should be free from all any known vulnerabilities, publicly known vulnerabilities. So for a specific hardware and software version, firmware versions, which capture in one of the previous sheets. These sheets actually capture all the capture the current status of the known or mitigated vulnerabilities. Apart from that, other compliance like at factory default state, only required services would be active and exposed, which is required to set up the device, and other services should be in active state, non-operational state. So those are the compliance captured in these sheets. And finally, this list of cryptographic keys used in the device and how they actually follow the standards and don't deviate in terms of key length and strength. So yeah, just to iterate that this is the template sheets which actually capture most of the requirement, almost all requirement to comply with the RED DA. But we understand that there might be some deviation or implementation on top of standard reference platform. So the sheets, this compliance, this information may need to be adopted uh, based on the end product configuration. So yeah, this is all from my side. So these documents can be accessed via the Espressif support team. Yeah, we hope this compliance will be this self-declare this pre-filled documents will greatly help customer to achieve their compliance faster. Yeah, that's all from my side.
Okay, thank you everyone. It was very, very, very informative webinar, I would say. So thanks to the presenters, and thank you audience for such lovely and so many questions. So I think we will be pretty occupied. We might not be able to answer all of them, but be sure we will try to answer them offline through comments on the YouTube channel. This video will be live to view later, and the comment section will be also live. So if we are not able to answer all the questions during this session, we will certainly try to take them up offline. So let's see what all questions we have. So the first one is MJ. MJ says, would the RED DA standard documents be publicly available in the future? So Alex, you want to take that?
Yes. So the RED, the documents are available, of course. So there are some documents that are very, very important, like the Blue Guide was mentioning already by David Binder. The standard EN 18031 is available. You need to buy it, but it's available. That's very important in order to help you understanding the flow and the activities to be done. So yeah, standards are already available, and the documents is a very important input for you to start the process.
Yeah, thank you. Next question we have is from Anusha. Anusha says, does the password rule apply for the hardware product or also for any web application that interacts with the hardware product? Maybe David, you want to take it?
Yeah, sure. Here we need to pay attention. I'm not sure I understand the questions correctly, but in principle, anything that you implement on the device is in scope. How you implement the web application is not analyzed for the radio equipment directive. So, however the user logs on to the web application is not in scope of the standard and of the assessment.
Okay, thank you. I think we have a similar question which says, if a device connects to a phone via Bluetooth but does not send receive data via internet, is the scope is it in scope or not? It communicates with the app on the phone but not connects to the internet. Maybe Sachin, you want to take that? Sachin, you are on mute.
Yeah, if device connect to phone via Bluetooth but does not send receive data via the internet. So yeah, Bluetooth is used for local connectivity. Device is not sending any signal or communication over the internet. So in this case, it will not be in the scope of RTA. But device somehow have connectivity to the internet through Wi-Fi or any other means, through radio, any other radio signal, then it will be the scope of RTA.
Okay, thank you, Sachin. We have another similar line question from an IoT device hosting a local web page for device access management. Do we really need to enforce HTTPS, or will HTTP be enough since it's still in LAN mode? There was a follow up on this question: is if we are hosting the web page locally for IoT device management, would the self-signed HTTPS be enough? David, you want to?
Yeah, sure. In this case, if you are hosting the local web page, it really depends on what is transmitted there and what is your observation on the network. Then it also follows up with the question: is the device connected to the internet? In addition to that, if it's not connected to the internet and you are hosting a local web page where members of the network can connect to it, then you don't need to implement encryption there following the radio equipment directive. Of course, it's recommended to use encryption, and as soon as you are transmitting personal data there, depending on the device type, if it falls under other points of the RED or any of them applies, then you will need to encrypt those assets if they are transmitted over the interface.
Okay, yeah, thank you, David. Next, we have Harshal. He's asking, once CRA comes into effect, would my connected product need to comply both CRA and the RED compliance? Alex, maybe?
Yes, so that's a very important question. So the RED will be absorbed by the CRA, actually will be part of the CRA, and therefore it will be, the compliance will be against the CRA here. Of course, there are some additional parts that the CRA is implementing. So for example, the vulnerability handling management. So it will not be only RED, but you need also to consider how you are handling the vulnerability part. But of course, we will keep you posted about the evolution of the CRA in the next months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess CRA is going to become very important. So thanks,
Yes.
Alex, for highlighting that. Next, we have MJ. MJ asks, from compliance perspective, is it necessary for a product software to be periodically scanned for security vulnerabilities and the fixes to be provided during the life cycle of the product? Sachin, you want to take that?
Yes. So GEC and SUM secure update requirements actually to comply with this requirement. So product need to be scanned periodically, and OEM supposed to release a OTA update to fix those if any publicly known vulnerabilities, exploitable vulnerabilities are found.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let me see. Do we have? Okay, yeah, there's one couple of more. So Aditya asks, I'm building a ESP32 product, but not using Wi-Fi or Bluetooth functions. Does RED DA still apply for my case? Product firmware does not contain any connectivity code or APIs. Maybe David?
Yes. If your product has these interfaces, it might require a statement here that your software does not make it functioning, and therefore you are not required to follow any radio equipment directive because you are not putting these interfaces active. You might have the possibility that someone changes your firmware. Here you have this risk assessment statement to do that.
Yeah. Thank you, David. We'll take two more questions probably because we are already over time. So the next one is, to be RED DA compliant, what is the minimum security assets to be implemented in the product? Alex, do you want to take this?
Yeah, so it's a tricky question. So it depends by the product that you are producing, first of all. So you need to understand in which part of the EN 18031 your product is falling under the scope, and then based on that. You need to consider if how to handle the risk assessment, and based on the risk assessment, you can understand how to move forward and which will be the minimum activities to be done here.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. One last question we take up is, for a product using multiple chips where one chip acts like a master, do we focus on RED DA compliance on the master chip or also on other chips of the product? Maybe Sachin, you want to take this?
Yeah. So actually, the compliance is for the end product, complete product. So if that product involves multiple components and security implementations, doesn't matter where, which part of the component, which component actually host which security assets and security functionality, those all should be captured in the compliance document and ensure that how they are fulfilling the RED security requirements. So it doesn't matter in which part it is implemented and where how it is implemented. It is for the end product.
Okay. Okay. We think that's all we can take now, but we will ensure to answer the rest of the questions offline, replying to your comments. So thank you, everyone. It was really, really nice to have you. And thank you, Alex, David, Sachin, for your time and enlightening us and the attendees about RED DA and how can they build compliant products. So thanks, everyone. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.